Our first community leader has been Franklin County Commissioner since 2007. As commissioner, she is focused on economic development, jobs, and quality of life. She's also worked closely with MORPC to help create jobs and invest in infrastructure, and she was previously a board chair with MORPC. Commissioner Marilyn Brown.
Thank you. An easily walkable core is at the heart of any vibrant city, and while walkability downtown and short north may be among the best in the city, and yet it has challenges, our other inner city neighborhoods lack many pedestrian amenities. How can we help make the urban core areas more friendly and accessible to pedestrians, including those with disabilities? And how can we increase pedestrian safety?
Just to answer Commissioner Brown's question, we sought out to identify really challenging areas within our city that lack the basic walkable connectivity that is critical to their integration within the overall city and their economic vitality. And we did this through identifying a concept that we think is really applicable throughout the entire city, and we've entitled that Closing the Gap. So, apologize if you can see this here, but this is Columbus looking north. This is High Street, sort of running north-south, and east-west is Broad Street. We tried to give ourselves sort of a scope that identified sort of a broad cross range of urban conditions within Columbus, running along the short north, along through Italian Village, and down to the south here was sort of downtown Columbus. But we really set out on foot to walk this area and try to identify some opportunities. And we were through the area of High Street, Fifth Avenue, and Cleveland here. You can kind of see sort of the scope we gave ourselves. We really started to identify something interesting. You and I, or at least we're familiar with Short North and Italian Village, but something we were less familiar with was the neighborhood of Milo-Grogan. And I know it's a little difficult to see here, but we've tried to highlight sort of the neighborhoods in yellow. But something we really identified through walking those streets is that there's this large industrial gap that divides this neighborhood of Milo-Grogan that's somewhat relatively unknown. And when we studied it further, we realized that there's really only two ways to cross that gap. It's through Fifth Avenue and through Second Avenue running east-west. And it's even further encumbered by a railway line that runs north-south, creating a very unfriendly urban condition that you must cross under. And sort of a way to sort of focus our efforts even further, we chose to study Second Avenue and really look at some ideas that could come of this and then could be applied to other parts of the city. Just to sort of familiarize you with where we're at High Street here in the Short North, which really has some of the best walkability in the city today. But as you start to walk down Second Avenue through Italian Village, you begin to get further towards what we considered the gap, and the pedestrian experience really begins to deteriorate very quickly. Excuse me. You see you have vacant sidewalks, vacant buildings, very challenging sort of walkable conditions. And then you sort of come to the other side, to Milo-Grogan, which is a very, somewhat of a transitional neighborhood, but very similar in character to Italian Village in terms of its housing stock and sort of the way it addresses the street. And so with that, we just wanted to introduce this concept to you, looking back at downtown to show really how close this opportunity is to downtown, yet how this neighborhood can feel really so far away.
This gap isn't only a physical one. Because Columbus is a driving city, there are unseen consequences formed after the development of its major transportation routes, such as marginalization of certain populations. So the lack of cohesiveness and fluidity within and between communities due to these gaps also reduces our economic vitality as a city. To restore what is lost and bridge the gaps, thereby increasing connectivity, we focus on walkability and enhancing the pedestrian experience. A walkable street or neighborhood meets the following three criteria: safety. People feel at ease and are not threatened by the environment physically or psychologically. Accessibility and comfort. People with varying degrees of mobility can traverse the space without difficulty. And wayfinding. There are markers and cues and activity spaces to reinforce directionality. We're going to explore walkability in Columbus through 3 case studies.
So the first case study is Pamela, who is a resident of Milo-Grogan, and what we really focused on was her daily commute to work, which is actually in the short north west of High Street at a local medical center. She chooses generally to walk down 2nd Avenue every day. Now, why does she walk? Why does she not take the bus? Well, upon investigation, most bus routes actually run north-south in this area. So in order for her to take the bus, she'd actually have to go down Cleveland to Broad, over, and then back up High. So it's just much quicker for her to just walk. And quite frankly, it's 23 minutes, which isn't a large amount of time. But what she does encounter, lack of lighting, this really ominous, foreboding bridge that she has to go under where the sidewalks are. I mean, these pictures are from weeks ago. And then just a complete lack of street activity, all of which results in her feeling unsafe and not really enjoying this walk that she has to take every day.
My case study is Andy, and she is a grad student at Ohio State. And she has to get to a meeting at the State Library of Ohio, which is right off of 2nd Ave. And Andy has Marfan disease, which is a connective tissue disorder. It makes physical exertion really difficult, and she cannot lift things, so she has a rolling backpack for all of her books. So, as previously stated, she can take a bus up and down High Street, but she still would have to walk along 2nd or any of those other routes on over. And on her way, she encounters misstepped sidewalks, and this is just on High Street in the short north. Fire hydrants at random places. This is right next to a curb cut. Missing curb cuts. There's just no way here. She'd have to pick up her backpack. If you're in a wheelchair, you're stuck. And then just all kinds of crumbling sidewalks, lack of any place for her to rest and take a break. And this final one just kind of exemplifies all of those issues in one slide. It's not a good way.
All right, I'm introducing Jonathan. He's from DC. He is staying at the New Hilton on North High and is an avid home brewer. He decided to go to the Seventh Sun, which is on the 4th Street corridor. He took North High Street up and decided to take 2nd through. He came across very terrible road conditions. He didn't quite know where to go, obviously. We don't have a lot of signage here. We don't have a lot of city maps along High Street even to get to know other parts of the city besides High Street, which is very difficult. As you can see, he experienced long sideway gaps without any crosswalk explanations or anything like that, so he didn't know exactly where to cross. And then obviously we have a lot of vacant space that could be used artistically to create more of an ambiance of you know where you're going or what area you are in the city.
All of our case studies cross 2nd Avenue, so we sat down as a team to come up with as many ideas as possible to make this area more walkable by making it safer, more accessible, and easier to navigate. So what we're hoping is that these ideas can come together and become a model for planning and development in Columbus to stitch together all of the urban areas to make a stronger core.
Okay. So again, we return to the question, how can we improve walkability? So if you remember Pamela, we have a before issue. So she struggled with safety. So her route included things like low lighting, walking under dark underpasses, and just a general feeling of nobody around. So what we proposed was a way to create a vibrant place that increases pedestrian activity. So we wanted to find new uses for underutilized buildings. We wanted to place a walkway over the railroad tracks that was also a viewing platform and now a destination for people to go. And with this destination, we strived to make an occupied, walkable, and safe street. So now we return to Andy. So if you remember Andy, her issue was accessibility. So she was struggling with impassable sidewalks, uninspiring walls, and no crosswalks whatsoever. So here what we presented, we tried to solve the problem of accessibility with new sidewalks and clear crosswalks. while introducing art through street furniture, wall graphics, funky lighting, and community installations. We wanted to make the street really interesting along the walk, and we didn't want to make it a challenge for her anymore. So then lastly, we have Jonathan, our tourist. He's lost because of the lack of identity of the area, the low lighting. There's no trees, no furniture, nothing to kind of even sit on and wait and kind of get his bearings again. So what we're proposing is, what if we created a truly memorable experience through wayfinding? How can we help, or how can a street help guide you? And so what we wanted to do was make the street engaging with infographics and identifiable markers. So with this intervention, we wish to create a lasting impression through a branded neighborhood. And we identify this by using elements such as public art, sculpture, and signage. So just in conclusion, I want to leave you with, so with that, we hope our good ideas, big or small, could offer a solution to improve walkability while closing the gaps that divide our neighborhoods. Thank you.